Okay, so in the discussion board, I just posted this document, and you should be able to download a copy for yourself. Um, and it's just how to cite things like the textbook, um, the lessons from Canvas. So how you cite it both in the actual writing, right, and then what you put at the sort of at the end, the references. So anyway, I would encourage people to download that just because then you have it all set up and you don't have to guess about it. All right, so I'm going to talk about the assignment. So we'll go to the assignment in the. I'm going to see if I could do this on the line. All right, forget it. I'll do it later. Oh, this is also where I put recordings of the class broadcast, right? So I put them in the discussion, and then I also put them here. I figure that's easier than for people to have to try to remember everything where everything is all the time. All right, so the week 2 assignment's got a bunch of parts to it, and it's about sort of gearing up and starting to generate content for the essay. And it has a template, and the template looks like this. Okay, so let me see if. Hmm, Okay, so basically, I'll go over it before I. So you have your thesis statement you're trying to come up with, which is a clear position. You're brainstorming for 3 reasons why your position is important and valid, like why it would matter to write about it. Then you're coming up with 3 reasonable opposing views, like what are things that people might say that oppose you. You're writing an introduction paragraph, right? So that's the rough draft of the paragraph. And then you're trying to find, I think they want you to have 4. Okay, so now at this point you want to have 4 scholarly sources, and you want 2 of them that support you and 2 of them that are opposed to you. So you're looking for 4 scholarly sources. 2 of them are going to support your view, and 2 of them are going to mostly oppose your view. That's the theory. Okay, thesis statement. It's an argument statement. I tell people to use the word because in your thesis statement. And also, it'll be in your topic sentences. So when you force yourself to use this, you end up writing a more complete statement. Right? So if I was like, assisted suicide should be legal, that's not a complete argument statement. If I said assisted suicide should be legal because everybody has a right to determine their life, future, whatever I come up with. But so because is forcing you to come up with something to say, like a reason. And in in the thesis statement world, because there's such a thing as that, God forbid. But in the thesis statement world, um, you would want to have like 3 ideas. Okay, so this paper structure is going to be you're going to have your thesis, but the most of the essay is going to be developing 3 supporting arguments that you have. Um, and again, each one of those will be its own argument, and we'll use the word because. But so for the thesis statement, you want to try to, and this is again, everybody's still trying to figure out how it's not too broad and not too narrow. So if it's too narrow, it'll be difficult for you to think of 3 subjects. And if it's too broad, it will also be difficult. So it's this game. There's no real specific formula, but you do want eventually to come up with 3 supporting arguments. That's also why they have you in the next part here talk about 3 reasons why your stance is important and valid and right, and then 3 that are why it might, 3 opposing ideas. So the 3 is there. So you're trying to have a thesis statement that ends up having 3 supporting arguments. All right, then we have an introduction paragraph. All right, this is the thing. Okay. Okay, so the introduction paragraph. This is also its own little PowerPoint. So I divided it into 3 parts basically, but you'll see it's sort of. So the first thing is a hook. So you're trying to make the reader interested by using a technique. Think of it as like clickbait, right? Before there was clickbait, now that's exactly what it is. You're saying something that makes someone interested, like, oh, they want to read more. Then in general, you're starting general from the subject, whatever the big subject is. You're starting sort of background, like here's the general issue. And each sentence, you're basically getting more and more specific. And then you end with your thesis statement. So the hook can be various things. These are pretty standard suggestions. Like you could use a quotation or you use some sort of surprising fact. Ask a question is good. So it should be ask a question that you will eventually answer, right? But just to get the person thinking about the subject. And it's almost better. Yeah, that's good. So ask a question, describe a problem or dilemma. I tell people sometimes you can find a story, right, that introduces the subject. So if I had a story about a case like in the assisted suicide world where so here's this person and here's what happened, like I found it in research, right? Relaying that can make people interested because stories make everybody interested right away. You could define a term, like a specific word or series of words that are important that will be important for the rest. Historical comparisons are good. Things used to be this way and now they're this way. Things like that. Again, these hooks are for all types of essays, not just this type, but so you want to find something, use one of those things. All right. So the hook, right, saying something dramatic, celebrating the revolution. Francis had sent King Louis to the guillotine. You're like, all right, so this violence is great clickbait, apparently. Hey, this is Facebook sort of going on. All right. So anyway, you do a hook, then you start to narrow the subject, right? I mean, you start pretty broad. So in the last half of the 20th century is pretty broad, and then eventually you're getting down to this one I guess was on the death penalty, right? Therefore, our society should. Let's see. This is why you're supposed to do this. Mm-hmm. See, I've been through a bunch of cool things. Wow, I can never do that because I always want to type more on it. Um, okay, so you have a hook. You start with general background. Slowly, you don't really want to put specifics. That's something you don't need. I always tell people you don't need to quote things unless the thing you're quoting is going to help you, you know, sort of introduce the broad subject. But this is not a introduction is not a place where you put or unless it's like a startling fact, maybe. But in general, you don't put evidence in the meaning quotes or paraphrases in the introduction. And I think that that's it. Then you're looking for 4 scholarly sources. right? The other thing, and I'll put it in discussion again, I might already have done that. So you're supposed to use the Chamberlain Library to find scholarly sources, and that certainly works. Sometimes Google also works. So I was just trying to, I made a little short video about here's what you do if you want to use Google and sort of what you need to look for to make sure it is a scholarly source. The main thing is it uses sources and it has the sources listed at the end of it, right? Like Time Magazine doesn't do that. So popular magazines don't do it. Newspapers don't do it. They may be credible sources, but they're not scholarly sources. So you're looking for academic journal articles. That's essentially it. But still, some people have more success finding it in Google than they do in the library. But anyway, you're just trying to get 4 of those, 2 for your side, your position, and then 2 that are against it. And then have the APA references for the 4. That's all I think you really need. Yeah. Yes. You're not writing anything. All right. That's the assignment for the week.